you might have guessed from our opening question about self-observation and keeping track of our body, and what is our body telling us and how is it giving us information. Knowing others this is a beautiful saying from Lao Tzu. Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing the self is enlightenment. Know thyself, weary traveler, I am lost. I have forgotten who I am and why I came here. So many of the spiritual books and teachings that we have been covering, and that I'm sure you have touched upon in your own exploration, talk about getting to know yourself as the foundational spiritual piece. If we don't know who we are, how can we expect to reach into the world and understand other people and their needs and their movement and what's going on for them? We have to know, we have to take a seat at the table. We have to know from where we are looking at, what is our bias, what is our perspective, what is our default position, what is our, where are our own little quirks of where we have maybe judgments or fears, or until we understand those, we enter into every situation with this whole basket full of pieces that affect how it is we experience the situation. And that's great. But if we don't understand it, then we may find ourselves in a reaction that isn't equal to whatever's happening. We overreact, maybe we underreact, we remove ourselves, and we're not understanding what's behind that for us. So know thyself, weary traveler. I believe it was Marianne Williamson, many different teachers have written books, coming home to self, coming back home, getting back into your own habitat. It's a common theme. And so I'd like us to spend just a little time on it this morning. It was written, know thyself was written over the gate to Pythagoras' school. It was above the entrance to the oracle at Delphi. Socrates taught it to his students. Krishna, Buddha, Lao Tzu, Jesus, Rama, they all taught it. On the path of awakening, this teaching is fundamental. The essential tool to knowing thyself is simple observation. This is why we spoke about it this morning and asking the question, where do you feel something? Because we need to be in such observation that we start to know ourselves really keenly, not in an abstract way, but in a concrete way. So much of what happens in emotions and responses feels like it's not concrete, but then it shows up in our body in a concrete way. So how do we tether that experience of some information coming in and being a catalyst for something that happens in our body? How do we keep track of that? Buddha called it watching. Krishna called it meditation. Jesus called it witnessing. And Gurdjieff called it self-observation. Gurdjieff had a very big, his way of inquiry was through self-observation and through being present, through the act of presence, which is, really powerful in our spiritual teachings. One of the sayings or the thoughts I saw about this, which I thought was so powerful, was that self-observation is a form of prayer without words. A form of prayer without words. Watching ourselves is prayerful. It's prayerful, it's important, but it's more than that, it's sacred. And when we start to recognize that sacred act as part of our responsibility to ourselves as we are working towards the sacred activity of our being, towards a consecrated body and space, we're working to have ourselves in a state of self-observation so that we can sit in that place. It's meditation in action. Meditation in action. Unless and until I come to know myself, I'm driven by habits which I do not see. So we're veiled from our repetitive behaviors until we start to pay attention. And when you start to pay attention, you start to see all sorts of things that are happening of which you were sort of unaware of. There's like a path, there's little breadcrumbs. And if we start paying attention, these breadcrumbs are very useful for us to be able to unearth sort of the basis for this? Where is all of this coming from? However I'm behaving, what is this judgment I have? What is this resistance I have? How am I not seeing things because I'm so in a rote response? I just automatically go to this default position. What's my default position? Because I want control over how it is I'm responding. Not that I would not respond appropriately if there was a situation, but that I want to be able to not have it run amok, just the way the mind is a monkey mind and goes wherever it wants to go until you learn how to harness it. The same is happening inside of our body. Our body has its own journey that's happening separate from our mind. Of course, they're connected, but our body's having its own illustration of what's going on, just as your mind is illustrating to you your concerns, your fears, your default situation, or how it is that you piece things together. Your mind is giving you all sorts of information when it goes off script. It tells you all sorts of things that may or may not be true, but it's giving you indicators of what's going on. What is the unconscious response that I'm having? It shows up in my thoughts and it shows up in my body. And when I don't pay attention to that and I stay in my repetitive, habitual responses, I am stressing my body. And I'm also using these habits of a lifetime to blind me from the truth of who I am. Something that might have started because of a difficult relationship, or because of your upbringing, or because of a health situation. It could be coming from anywhere, but something that has concretized itself, a thought, a belief, a feeling that's concretized itself because I was unable to dissect it. When we can dissect and take apart pieces of a habitual behavior, we have a better chance of deciding if we wish to change it. It's easier to change something when it's been moved and dissected than it is when it's concretized. The act of self-observation is the only change that a human needs in order to make her behavior different. Self-observation is enough to change everything else that's going on for us. All of the fundamental changes in behavior and emotion arise as a byproduct of us being in self-observation. It's foundational. So in other words, self-observation is radical, it's revolutionary, it's changing our whole system, and it's evolutionary. It's allowing us to adapt to and become that which we came here to become. It's a fundamental change in the inner world of our system, a fundamental change. The act of observation changes everything that's observed. There was a 20th century German physicist, Werner Heisenberg. He had an insight which altered the way that we see physics. It was called Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And he said in this observation that the act of observation changes the thing that is observed. There's also the double slit experiment, which I'm sure many of you have looked at, which illuminates the same truth. By simply observing something, the outcome of that thing changes. It seems too simple. It seems like, how's that possible? If I'm just sitting here quietly looking at something, how does that change that which I'm looking at? But physics has shown us that this is true. It's true on the macro and the micro level, and it's true from the observation of subatomic particles to the observation of the galaxies. It's physics. The laws of physics and the laws of metaphysics, so what's happening in the macro and the micro, are identical. The physics describes the external laws and metaphysics the internal laws. So the bottom line is self-observation changes what is observed. We don't have to change anything else if we don't want to. If we simply observe ourselves with honesty and without judgment. So we don't get into another whole story about who it is and why we're doing this. Just observe what's happening in yourself, and because you're doing that, and through the honesty that you're using without judgment, you automatically will start changing, because you observe things that you realize are not really a truth, or are not really a necessary pattern or habitual behavior. And you'll decide that's something you want to do differently. So the act of observation changes how you interact with that which is coming up for you. And part of this is sensing our body. That's why we asked the question this morning, where do you feel emotion in your body? Because we have these internal energy centers, or we call them chakras, and those centers are channeling energy and taking on energy, and that's like a valve in us. And we get to see what's the health of that valve and how is that valve working. The intellectual center. So in this study that I'm referring to, they looked at primarily 3 centers. We have more centers than that, but they looked at 3 centers that have a big impact on this self-observation. And that includes our intellectual center, which is the thinking head, brain, left hemisphere, our emotional center, which is our emotions, roughly located around the region of the mid-breast solar plexus. So most of you said, where do you feel your emotion? In your gut. That's where the center is located. That's not to say that you might not even pay attention to when it's there. You might take emotions that go through your system in a way that they happen all the time, so you don't pay that much attention until it moves to your neck or your back or some other place, and now you have a pain that's associated with the emotion, and so you start paying attention. And the third center is the instinctive center, which is located around the navel, and it's often related or held in tandem with the moving center, which is at the base of the spine. So the intellectual center, the emotional center, and then the moving instinctual centers. Those 3 centers are an easy way for us to start in self-observation to see what's happening on those levels. Is this situation happening in my mind? Am I thinking it? Is it my monkey mind going through it? Or is it happening in my solar plexus? Or is it happening as an instinctual movement? There was one story, one little brief story that I thought illustrated this well. They said that suppose that there's a man walking through tall grass to the river, and along the trail, there's a snake poised to strike. Before this man consciously does anything, his body leaps aside, because his instinctual center sensed something of danger and he moved. It wasn't an intellectual movement where he stopped, looked at the snake, thought, oh, I better get out of the way of this, and then moved his body. It happened first in his instinctual center. So let us pay attention to where are we getting activated first. And generally we'll find that it's instinctual, or movement happens in our system before it's happening in the intellect. The intellect isn't as far ahead as our instinct is. And, just to look at our educational system, the primary focus of our educational system is on the intellectual center. There's very little, or there has been, certainly when we were all in school, very little done around emotions, feelings, instinct. It was intellectual. You memorize things and then you could spit them back out. But a full, whole person is integrating these 3 in a healthy way. So some situations require that the intellectual center is more heightened, and you will want your instinctual, some you'll want your emotional, but noticing how you're using them. How are you using those centers in your life? How are you integrating them to their highest potential? And where are you getting maybe caught by them? Where are you in an imbalance? And I think some people will say, well, I've shut down my emotional center because I had trauma, and having my emotional center heightened is too painful. That's an interesting information for us to have. And how do we gently start to allow that to open up so that we can be utilizing it appropriately? We don't have to be open and porous all the time in all ways. But if we are operating primarily out of one center, we're not getting the full information of our life. The information's coming in from the outside and something's happening internally. How are we in relationship with that internal information? So this week, what would be fabulous for us to do is to try and look as an outsider looking at ourselves. The self-observation requires you to witness yourself, not to be caught up in the middle of it, but to be outside, almost as though you've set yourself aside and the self is having a reaction, a response, something's happening, and you're observing it. Maybe you're writing it down. You're in a state that does not get pulled into what's happening. You can look as though you're an outsider. Witness yourself. Witness these 3 centers. See what's happening in your body. Where, when you're being drawn in, not even aggravated, but just drawn in emotionally or intellectually, or where are you feeling it? What's happening instinctually? A lot of people say they have a difficult time with their instinct, tracking what am I instinctively knowing about a situation, and so that I can respond to it, or when is it my mind already thinking what it wants to have happen? How do I know my gut? How do I relate to that? Part of the way that we do that is we start paying attention to when the instinct is happening, when our gut feeling is happening. We look and see what's going on. So this week, spend time when you're going through your life. You don't have to go search anywhere for this. Just get up in the morning and go to your life, and it will show up for you, and see what it is that is coming up and where you're feeling, and start using this body this week as a thermometer for your overall balanced health. Where are you out of balance? Where are you in balance? Let our bodies teach us something. We have to be in witness of ourselves, which gives us a space. We talk about having that space between ourselves and how we react, where we actually get to we get to sit in it a little bit without having to explode in whatever emotion or intellectual, whatever's happening. That we create life is just held outside of us a little bit, not so tight around us, where everything we're dragging it around. It's like glued onto us. Life doesn't have to be glued onto you. It can be beautifully dancing around you. And you're in the middle, and you're in the flow, and you're loving it, but it doesn't have to be attached to you. And let's see what happens with that.
Thank you, my dear. Okay, while you were speaking, I thought, okay, let's go through some of these organs, where we experience some feelings and sometimes store them, or they are trapped in them. So one of them is definitely the lungs. So let us interlace our fingers, tip of the thumbs are touching, arms are coming up, palms facing upward. Keep your arms as straight as you can. Close your eyes. Inhale and mentally count to 5. Exhale, mentally count to 6. So you gently inhale, counting to 5. And then on the exhalation, you mentally count to 10. On the inhalation, you become bigger. On the exhalation, you bring your navel towards your spine, so to speak. And motion that can be trapped here is resentment or grief. If 5-10 is too long for you, maybe do 4-8 or 3-6. Inhale deeply, suspend your breath, reach up a little higher. Exhale, bring your arms out to the side, palms facing outward, so my fingertips pointing back, and we go into the heart protector. Lift your chin, chest, arch slightly, keep your fingers pointing backwards. Same breath, inhale for a count of 5, exhale for a count of 10. And envision the membrane, the sac around your heart, protecting your heart. The heart, the heart thrives on joy. So does our small intestine. And they are together, actually. They're a couple in the meridian world. If there's too much sadness, these organs actually are suffering. And we always need to remember that sadness doesn't need to be healed. Sadness really needs to be held. And that's where the touch comes in, asking for being held. It's totally okay. Because once we are holding sadness, we can integrate it and we can be freed. So let's open your eyes, bring your arms back to center, left palm up, right, and turning it back like a corkscrew. One is down, one is up, going into the heart meridian. Inhale, exhale. I inhale when my left palm comes up, I exhale when my right palm comes up. So watch your head, it's only your arms moving, your head is stable. You bring your shoulders forward, you round them. Working for your heart through your arms. A lot of worry, is unhealthy for our heart health. That does not mean when you worry once or so, that's fine. But if it's consistent worry, it takes away from the heart's health. The last 30 seconds, I know you feel it by now. Just move through it, breathe through it. You're working for your heart right now. Good, inhale, rest your left hand on your liver region. So it's underneath your right rib cage. Bring your right arm forward, your hand is cupped. And you exhale, and you bring your elbow, make sure your elbow is higher than your right ear. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Concentrate on your liver. The liver is not decongested. We will be less impatient, less angry, less enraged. These emotions can be trapped there. Your left hand is warming your liver. The liver loves warm drinks, warm food. Give it up a little bit more. Make sure your right elbow is higher than your right ear. That's really the stretch for your liver. So if you want to throw everything overboard, behind you, into the past. So it can be integrated and become your history. And it allows us to stay in the present moment. Good, and relax. Let's think of our stomach. We mentioned before, the stomach is not in front. It's a little bit to the left. Yeah, so we bring our arms back out to the side. You open your mouth, you inhale through your open mouth, and palms should face each other. They are not touching. And exhale through your nose. Breathe some space into your stomach. The stomach also suffers from worry, from anxiety, from depression, all emotions that are not uplifting our spirit. The last one. And exhale. So kidneys, the home of our anxiety and fears. So just take your fist and gently hit your lower back region. Very gently, find your breath and just hit gently. It's great to do under the cold shower. If you take a cold shower, or any shower actually, just hit your kidneys a little bit. Removing some of the stored fears here. Good, then rub your palms rigorously so that you create some heat, and place your hands onto your kidney region. 2 more times. I don't want to forget our colon, our intestines, because they have a lot to do with our emotions. So make little fists, thumb is inside, and hit around your belly button. So I start at the bottom below my belly button. I go to the right, and I move up, and I'll go over to the left. And then close your eyes. We just spoke yesterday about just the small intestine has the length of 22 feet. That's just imagine somebody standing you next to you, 22 feet high, you would go like this. That's how long the small intestine is. Good. And I want to end with having our hands on our knees, and especially for those who have like slight neck issues where the fear or the emotions go into the neck. So bring your left arm out to the side, right hand over your head, hold on to your left ear, and very gently, especially Stacy, very gently just pull your head here to the right, and then move the left hand up and down. So gently come to center, switch hands, ear. You can look at the neck as somebody or something has a grip on you. Good, and then we come to center. Rest your hands, palms open onto your knees, straighten your spine, keep your eyes closed. Just take a moment to feel into your body. And this morning we will do our chanting 12 times. Oops, that's not what I-
And placing your hands in prayer pose at your heart, we'll close with Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Have a beautiful week in self-observation. Witness yourselves. Get to know yourself.
Safe journey, love.
Thank you. See you next